Greetings everyone, Slizzle466 here, and in today's video we're looking at some of the best meta and off-meta decks for climbing in Wild for July 2021. Starting off with our meta decks, we look at Corbett's Even Hunter. This is barely meta, but we gotta get a Hunter deck in here somehow. So this is a very aggressive list. You've got 23 2-drops, a lot of those 2-drops being secrets, but because of your hero power costing 1, you can make it cost 0 with Felfire Deadeye. You can then use it multiple times with Garrison Commander, or maybe even deal with the board with your Steam Whittle Snipers. Combining that with Dragonbane, having a 1 or 0 mana hero power that does an additional 5 damage randomly is incredible. But all around, if you want to play Hunter, this would be a good way to do it. I also really like the Nerebar Weblords in there. Looking at Druid, we have Togwaggle Druid by Killer Raccoon. This is a list where you basically play Celestial Alignment to reset your mana. Everything costs 1. You then ramp back up as quickly as you can using your Biology Project's Nourishes, for example. And then you want to play your combo, which would be not necessarily, you don't necessarily need all the cards because again they cost 1, but you basically want to play the King Togwaggle to swap decks, and then the Azalina to copy your opponent's hand, which has the ransom spell in it, so that if your opponent tries to swap decks, you just swap them back again. We've got Aggro Druid by Oddlaw. I tested this list out on one of my other accounts where I own Crystal Merchant, and it was incredible. Really like the Crystal Merchant. One thing I found is when you've got some embiggens going, sometimes your cards are kind of awkwardly costed, and so you are floating mana, and so the Crystal Merchant really helps clean that up. I also really like the Speaker Gidra in here. I wouldn't craft it though if you don't own it, but it has stolen me quite a few wins that I didn't deserve. And then we have Malygos Druid by Sinister Me. Almost said Malygos Rogue like I did in a video I made of this. But this is, your typical Malygos Rogue, but Sinister Me has sprinkled in some big elements to it. Since the Celestial Alignment makes everything 1, what's wrong with throwing in some Scrapyard Colossuses, throwing in some Fizzy Elementals? So it's just a nice little anti-aggro tech, I guess you could say. But this is a really strong list, and I highly recommend giving it a go. Moving on to Mage, we have Killer Raccoon's Reno Lunas Pocket Galaxy Mage. So in this case, you've got your Lunas Pocket Galaxy. Now this list, be warned, is an incredibly crazy greedy one. So I don't typically feature lists this greedy, but this is like Greed Town to the max. You've got the Mutinous in there, your Total and Pilgrim, 3 Alexstraszas, Frostlich Jaina, Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron. My goodness, not very free-to-play friendly, but if you want to play the greediest Reno Lunas Pocket Galaxy list I've ever seen, this will be your deck. Next up we have Mazaki Mage. Mazaki Mage is a very powerful deck. You've probably lost to it quite a few times yourself. The Incantus Flow makes everything really cheap. Sorcerer's Apprentice makes things even cheaper. You slam down Mazaki pretty early, empty your entire hand, draw your entire deck, win the game. I should mention at this point that there might be some lists that you don't see here. For example, there is no Secret Mage. That's because Secret Mage is a pretty stock list, not that interesting. And I've only got 27 deck slots. Moving on to Paladin, we have Hand Buff Paladin. Hand Buff Paladin, not that great anymore, but it's still kind of hanging in there. Sorry, bodybuilder. But this is a list that I found by a player called Ale, who hit a pretty decent rank. I know I normally just feature bodybuilders list by default, but gotta spread the love around a little bit. But this is just a pretty normal hand buff list. The Bluegill Warrior is kind of cute to have another charge minion. The Underlight Angling Rog is great. if you're trying to just have a little bit of anti-aggro tech. But otherwise, it's hand buff Paladin, and its bits and pieces are slowly getting nerfed from time to time, not because of this deck, but because of what's going on over in Standard. Next up we have Odd Paladin by Ghost Dog. This is a really strong build of Odd Paladin. Typically, when I want Odd Paladin lists, I just go to Ghost Dog's Twitter and net deck him. He's very good at the deck, very good at playing the most optimal list, and there's not much to say about this besides the Lord Barav animated broomstick tech is for the Dark Lair Warlocks. Otherwise, it's just a really solid list. Looking at Priest, again, there's no big Priest list here because big Priest it's pretty stock. It doesn't really ever change. But Reno Priest, be warned, this is quite the list. There are some more normal Reno Priest lists you see, but I just really want to feature this one because it's really, really fun. It's a Thief Reno Priest, so you've got Chameleos in here, you've got Cloning Device, you've got Thoughtsteal in here, Curious Glimmerroot, Madame Lazul. There's a Mutinous in here, there's an Archbishop Benedictus in here. So if you want to have some fun with a really greedy, very frustrating to your opponents build of Reno Priest, definitely give this one a try. I can rest assured I will be trying this one for sure. Moving to Rogue, we have Odd Rogue. So this is a list that hit pretty high legend by a player called Lovely as God. Looking through this list, the Diamol's kind of weird. I don't know why that's in there, I'll be honest. I guess it's a Paladin tech. But I like the Double Sinister Strike. It's a great tech against Dark Lair Warlock. I personally love Wand Thief. I just love getting random mage spells. Apart from that, it's your typical buff your weapon to a great amount and then play this for free, draw through most of your deck, do a lot of damage out of nowhere, and kill your opponent. Moving over to Kingsbane, we've got a list by a player called Larat. Kingsbane, there have been varying iterations here and there. I've featured lists with Zephyrus in the past. This list is not running Zephyrus, which I think is probably the right thing to do. I also like that this list is only running one Blade Flurry. I found that the list is running 2 Blade Flurries. It's really awful when you draw both of them. So this list I'm a big fan of. It's a little bit more optimal than some of the previous lists I've played around with, so definitely give this one a try. Now looking at Shaman, you might be thinking, why is there only one deck here? I know everyone's having a lot of fun with Shaman, but a lot of the decks aren't that great, and the best one out there is probably Reno Shaman. The reason Reno Shaman works so well is, first of all, you've got your Toxfin, Firemancer Flurgle combo to get a board clear. If you make sure these are the only 2 Murlocs in your deck, you can draw them both with ice fishing. But otherwise, like, there's just so much removal because as expansions and mini sets come out, more and more stuff gets added to Reno lists. The Primal Dungeoneer just helps get some card draw that Shaman is so desperate to have. Tidal Surge got buffed to 3 mana, which has really helped. Kazakus Golem Shape is really good. Just be careful with the Golems, don't pick the draw cards one because that effect comes back from the Shadowwalk. The Barista is great to get your stuff back, as well as your Zola, of course. Hagatha Scheme is a pretty good clear, if you don't top deck it, of course. The Talon Forging is critical to draw your Shadowwalk on time. You can Geppetto Joybuzz to get the Shadowwalk or other minions and do crazy things. Of course, Reno Jackson to heal, Lower Theb to block out spells. Just really good archetype, and it's definitely going places, and I'm even seeing people start to grumble about how powerful it's actually getting. What a meta we're in when people are complaining about Reno Shadowwalk Shaman. Moving to Warlock, we have Evil Devil's Reno Warlock. Now, Evil Devil is an incredible deck builder. He plays the most optimized list I've ever seen in my life. However, there is a Ticketus. You know my feelings on Ticketus. I've never been the biggest fan. But apart from the Ticketus, there's a Horde Operative in here. I have a feeling that when Evil Devil was climbing, there may have been one or two too many secret and or Mazaki Mages, so that's definitely a tech. But otherwise, really solid list. Maybe Sphere's a little greedy, but otherwise, if you're desperate to play a Reno lock deck, this would be the one to use. Looking at discard lock, nothing's really changed that much with discard lock. However, I like how this list has a Cataclysm in here. It's a great YOLO play when you're in really big trouble. And it might just happen that you have a whole bunch of good stuff in your hand. You might have Hannah Goldans. You may have Silverware Golems. So, you know, Boneweb Egg. So, discard lock. I like to call this the it's the Darkglare Warlock list for players who are bad at Darkglare Warlock. So, if you're not good at playing Darkglare, just play this. It's not quite as strong, but it's still pretty good. Speaking of Darkglare, it's Darkglare Warlock. Is there anything special about this list? Well, there's a Rain of Fire. This is a cool little tech. Great against aggro. Also damages yourself, which is great for your Flesh Giants and your Molten Giant. There's a Stone Tusk Boar in here, which I'm actually a big fan of. Stone Tusk Boar, power overwhelming Tamsin, can just do ridiculous amounts of damage out of nowhere. I'm on the no Zephyrus train in Darkglare. I know some people like it, but this list that hit a pretty good rank is running it, but maybe you want to cut it for something else. It's up to you. There's a Lesser Amethyst Spellstone in here. Keep in mind that this isn't the worst idea as a one-off. It does synergize with Tamsin, and getting a Spellstone for 0 mana is pretty great. But otherwise, I mean, Darkglare Warlock's so good that you can play 1 or 2 questionable cards and you're still going to be okay. Moving over to Warrior. Dead Man's Hand Warrior, the deck that I still have never learnt or played. Maybe one day I'll do it. I can't really comment much on this outside of this pilot is very good at the deck. I'm very good at building an optimal list. But I really can't say much outside of that. Besides, it's a really good deck, but very difficult to learn how to play properly. And then finishing off the meta decks, we have one of my favorites, Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior, the list that people don't play but should. Incredibly aggressive, punishes many archetypes. This is running a Wrench Caliber, which is great against Reno decks. But otherwise, I love me some Pirate Warrior. And if you want to smack people in the face a lot, this is the way to do it. Now we move on to the off-meta decks, starting off with Reno Demon Hunter. Now, Reno Demon Hunter, it's one of those archetypes where this specific player threw 30 cards together, including Zephyrus and Reno Jackson, and had a good time. Looking at the curve, like typically if you want to see if a deck is good or not, you look at their curve. They have a lot of 1, 2, 3 drops, so it's probably a good deck. But just be warned, it's Reno Demon Hunter. Deathrattle Hunter by Zeddy. This list is actually legit pretty good. It's a little bit on the greedy side, so you know it's running cubes, it's running N'Zoth the Corruptor, but this deck's really good. Zeddy had a really good run with it when he was completing some achievements. He climbed from something like 1500 to 500 maybe even 400 legend with this list. I tested it out myself and it's pretty fun. So if you want to play some Deathrattle Hunter, this would be a great way to do so. Looking at Mage, we have Reno Secret Mage. This is really on the fringe of between off meta and meta. Whenever I play the deck, it just never works for me. But this specific list I haven't tested myself, and I have a feeling it might be better than the previous list that I was playing around with. But otherwise, it's basically Secret Mage with some greed built into it. The Varden Dawn Grasp and the Brand Bronzebeard is a ridiculous combo. It's basically a board clear. But otherwise, I'm still kind of hurt when I lost so many games testing Reno Secret Mage in a previous YouTube video. But if you want to try this list, go for it. But I will not. Looking at Paladin, it's finally, imagine having a YouTube video without mentioning a bodybuilder list. Reno Paladin, I actually think this is better than Handbuff Paladin, but that's just my opinion, so I don't want to push this into the meta category. But this list is really good. Keep in mind with most bodybuilder lists that they do change from day to day as he adapts his list to the current meta. But otherwise, this is a really solid list. This specific one, I've actually seen multiple people hit legend besides bodybuilder with this list. So definitely give this one a try. This one seems a little bit greedier though than what I think he's done in the past, because I just noticed at the bottom there's a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. That's pretty dirty. Elton Ho Murloc Paladin. So, if you watched my recent Murloc Paladin video, I lost a lot of games. That's because I wasn't playing the optimal version. This is his updated optimal version. Anything is gone. Seed Cloud Buckler, if you've heard of that card, is in there. But otherwise, this is a much better way to play Murloc Paladin. You high roll with a prismatic lens, you get tip the scales for cheap, you kill your opponent before they have a chance to do anything. Moving to Priest, we have one of my favorite decks, a Combo Priest. It's the deck that never works that well, but there's always someone who has a good run with it at some point. This specific list I really like because No Mrigan Infantry is a card that is very nostalgic for me. But otherwise, just be warned, it's not the easiest deck to play, but it is very friendly for free-to-play players. So if you got a Priest quest, you're like, oh, all those Priest decks are so expensive. This is a very cheap way to play Priest. Looking at Rogue, we have Pillager OTK Rogue. Now, this is a deck that I only ever see success on the Asia and China servers. I don't know how they do it, but they hit really high legend with this list. I actually play on the Asia server, and I lose to this list constantly. I have no idea how to play this properly, and I feel like a lot of people don't either. But good luck. But you can do an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage out of nowhere if you know what you're doing. And don't play this deck on a phone. Play this deck on a computer. You'll never be able to do everything on a phone. Looking at Shaman, we have Shadowwalk Shaman by Martian. So this is a non-Reno builder Shadowwalk Shaman. So if you're the sort of person who's like, I really want to play Shadowwalk, but I hate when I can't draw the things I want, well, this would be the deck for you. I don't have a ton of comments about it. It's a pretty sensible list. You got your Toxfin Flurgle, your Ice Fishing, Primal Dungeoneer for drawing. It's a really solid list, but it's just the effective Reno is so good. I don't know if it's worth cutting out the Reno and the Zeph to play this. But I could be wrong. I'm not the person who's hitting high legend with these decks. Overload Shaman. This is a deck that has been played around with by many people, including Labor, if you watch his stream. And it's a deck that it's actually pretty good, but I just feel like something is lacking from it. It's great being able to spam out all these giants and be able to get them to come back with your, with the Spirit of the Echo, bringing them back to your hand, or Vivid Spores, bringing them back to the board. But I don't know. It's just something about it. I mean, that's why it's off meta. Some of these off meta decks become meta. Also, why don't I own 2 Beaked Lightnings? Now I do. That's weird. But yeah, try it out for yourself. But, if you're missing some cards, maybe don't. There's no Warlock here because Warlock's insane, and basically if you make a Warlock deck, it's going to be good. Doesn't matter what it is. So we shift over to Warrior. We got another deck from Killer Raccoon, Rush Warrior. This is one of those decks that is very difficult to pilot, but if you know what you're doing, you can slam up the ladder. So it's a hand buff Rush Warrior, so you've got the Blade Master Samuru in here. It's nothing close to as good as hand buff Paladin, but if you really want to play this style of deck, definitely give it a try. It's going to take you a bit of used to getting to make it work, but once you get it working, you'll be very happy with some of the wins you pull off. Thank you for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of this video. If you want to try out any of these decks, you'll find the deck codes in the description below. If you're a mobile user, it is very difficult to copy decks from the description below, so there is a easy to type in link to my Discord. Once you join my Discord, you can visit the deck lists only channel. All those deck codes will be there for you, easier to copy. If you want to help support this channel, you can click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and until next time, hope to see you again.